This story is about the first greenhouse that was ever built in Desoto. In 1890, John Needler built this greenhouse. He sold it to a Mr. Smoker about 25 years later. Mr. Smoker built a canning factory at the end of the greenhouse because they could utilize the heating system for the greenhouse, also the same system used in the canning factory. In 1935, Mr. Smoker sold the canning factory to a Mr. Wise and his brother-in-law, Mr. Current. They moved the canning factory to North Walnut Street in Muncie, and they operated it there for about the next 30 years. The old greenhouse was finally purchased in 1935 by Claude Pittenger. He dismantled the old greenhouse and used material in it to build a smaller greenhouse next to his home and operated it for about 25 years. Farther down the street, Frank Needler, the son of John Needler, built a building in 1898 and used it to house a bicycle and buggy repair shop. He replaced it in 1930 with a glazed brick building, which he used as an automobile repair shop. At his death in 1952, his grandson Norman Needler purchased the property and eventually sold it to Lee Huffman, who had been renting it for some years. In 1937, Roby Kogel and his wife Irene moved from their farm and bought a house on the south side of Desoto next to the railroad. Here Roby built a gas station, which he ran for many years. During World War II, in my teen years, Roby hired me to run this gas station on Saturdays. I opened the station at 7 a.m. and closed it at 6 p.m. I remember that the station had two gas pumps, one for regular gas at 18 cents a gallon and one for ethyl gas at 20 cents a gallon. And at this price, I pumped the gas, checked your oil, and cleaned your windshield. I earned $1 per day, but this furnished me with ample money for pop and ice cream at school the following week. Roby ran the gas station until near his death in 1952. His widow passed away the following year. Their son Herschel rented the house and leased the gas station to different individuals for several years, until Ray and Raylene Houston finally bought the house and the gas station. They still own it today. About 3 years ago, Ray closed the station because it had ceased to be a moneymaker. The first grocery store. The grocery store was built in the 1880s by Walter Jones on the west side of Desoto Main Street. He and his wife Lydia ran the store until his death. His widow then married Charles Rubel, and they ran the store until his death in 1926. At this time, the store was sold to Ethel Alt. She ran the store until she sold it to Ralph and Mildred Garst in 1934. The Garst ran the store until at an advanced age they closed it for good and went to Florida. There was another small grocery built across the street from the original Jones store in the late 1880s, but I have no information about who built it or ran it. It was located right next to the blacksmith shop, and both buildings burned down at the same time in 1923. Now the blacksmith shop. It was built in Desoto in the late 1880s and was owned by over the years by different men. Their main source of business was shoeing horses for all of the surrounding farmers. In 1923, fire destroyed this building and the grocery. About 1930, Herman Marbury built a smaller building on the same site as the old blacksmith shop. And Herman ran this shop until his death in 1951. Another memory concerning this newer blacksmith shop happened during the early 40s, the World War II years. With gasoline being rationed during the war, people tried to make no unnecessary trips. To help this situation along, the merchants of Desoto paid a man to come to Desoto once every week in the evening to put on a free movie. Since the blacksmith shop was back several feet from the street, it was an ideal place to hang a movie screen. People could then bring chairs and enjoy the movie. The man showing the movie parked his car out at the curb, put his projector on top of the car for electricity to operate his equipment. He ran an extension cord across the street into one of the grocery stores. Now we come to the third store in Desoto. About 1910, Daniel Boone Cooley and his wife bought a two-story house on the main street in Desoto. Soon afterwards, he built a flat-roofed building that was connected to his house. This building became a general store in which Mr. and Mrs. Cooley sold groceries and dry goods. They operated the store for many years until they retired. In the following years, it was sold and resold several times to different buyers. The last two owners put in a small restaurant named the Panther Place. Of course, the Panther Place was named for the DeSoto Panther basketball team. The store was finally closed. The building was then sold to another man who had it boarded up and never used it. The building sat there for several years. It was finally purchased by another man who tore the building and the old house down and sold the bare lot. Happened to think of a statistic that I didn't write down. At DeSoto's, the height of the DeSoto, they had about 65 houses and several businesses. As compared to today, they still have that many houses, but about a fourth of them are rentals. And there is not a business left in DeSoto to this day.